Hey, welcome to Radiance Shine from Within. I'm your host, Raylan Sandin. Hey, everybody. This is my gorgeous friend, my sister from another, from many others. I feel like maybe we could dive into that in the show too. Like there's a little bit, well, anyway. Okay, you guys will understand when we get to what the topic is, but this is Laura Mazzotta. She is the Akashic therapist in our midst. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's always a joy and a pleasure having you. We always have a good time. Half the time I think we're just recording our silliness and everybody gets to watch it. And somehow they learn things.
Yeah, somehow something ends up coming to pass when we talk.
Yeah, we're just throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall. Some of it sticks, right?
Exactly.
Do you ever do that when you were a kid?
Oh, all the time.
My mom and dad would be like, why is there spaghetti on the ceiling?
Well, it would leave marks on the wall, so they'd get irritated with me.
Oh
I know.
My God, yeah. Well, because they said that's what you're supposed to do to know your noodles are done.
Correct.
Stop doing that. Oh my God.
Yeah. No fun. They were no fun.
No fun at all. All right, so today and in our conversation, we have a lot of conversations together, you guys, but in our conversation last week, one of them that stood out to both of us, this is how we get our epiphanies from the energy we hold with each other, and we just go, hey, we're struggling. We might as well have a conversation about this for everybody else to witness. Yeah. We have questions. So we were kind of on the topic of boundaries. We were talking about one of our mentors had said in a conversation with us at one point that he doesn't have many boundaries in terms of approaching people and just, holding a conversation with just anyone he meets. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of curious about that. And I had asked you, I remember, and said, do you think it's different for men and women? Mm-hmm. And that sort of thing. And then we got on the topic of how do boundaries look when we recognize and realize and we're awakened to our spiritual path. Right. And our spiritual nature, right, at the soul level.
Right.
Go ahead.
Because we have this expectation, well, we're told that, if we're following the spiritual path, that we need to, that we're all connected in love. We're all here to help each other learn lessons, and we need to spread that love and kind of accept anybody under our wing and help them, I guess, see their divine nature, right? And appreciate their divine nature despite their human presentation.
Yeah, I like that. The human presentation. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember when we were talking about this mentor of ours and this is how he approaches things. Mm-hmm. He's somebody that both of us really respect and look up to.
Yeah.
That he's just so open. He really doesn't have that many boundaries for himself, Yeah. And for me, what comes up is fear. Mm-hmm. Because I think about that and I'm like, all right, well, and he literally, the example that he shared, I think, was, I'll be walking down the street and some drunk guy is going to come up to me and be like, hey man. And he's like, yeah, and he just embraces everyone who approaches him. Yeah. And how for me, I would probably be stepping back or shying away or feeling hesitant.
Right.
And so is that my ego? Is that, and then that's when you brought up the difference between women and men.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I think a lot of that lives there, but I also know we know him on a level that we also know that that's completely congruent to him and his personality. Yeah. Who he is, how he's presenting in his human form in this lifetime as well. And so there's lessons for us to learn there, certainly, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Can I interrupt you again?
Of course.
Already, and it's only been 5 minutes.
Okay.
That He, oh, don't leave my
Okay.
brain. Oh, no, I think one of the reasons that he can do that, this is just like coming to me now,
Yeah.
is because he has such clear boundaries as to who he is.
Yes.
Right? Like he's the kind of guy who will say, no, absolutely not.
Right.
You know,
100%.
without questioning it, without being rude about it, being compassionate, but
Right.
no.
Right.
You know, and so I think that he's so solid in kind of who he is and where he stands that
Yeah.
if somebody approached him in that way and did something that made him really uncomfortable, he
Mhm.
could fairly clearly say, you know, that makes me uncomfortable, or, you
Right.
know, what's that about for you, or whatever. Like he's just so confident. And
Yeah.
so I think that's part of it, is that's part of my fear, is that I don't have that level of confidence.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. That there isn't that level of comfortability of self, knowing that you're self-supporting and that you can and you will say the no. And for everyone who's listening, we know intellectually, but also there is the reality of knowing that no, N-O, is a complete sentence, period. And for a lot of us, we've grown up with the feeling that we have to justify, or we have to come up with an excuse or find another reason or whatever. And pretty soon we're talking ourselves into circles. And then for the astute people in our lives, who I was surrounded by a lot of them, would go, hey, wait a second, why are you doing XYZ? Because you told me that you had this, blah, 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 blah. So that's why you couldn't come to yada, yada, yada with me. But now you're out and I see you, or I saw you, and then I'm like, oh shit, I got caught in the fact that I didn't just say the no, thank you, or the no.
Right. And that's just going to come out right away, because that's what my coach teaches me all the time, is that ability to say, like, just stand in your power. Like, just say, it's about being in touch with our intuition. It's about being in touch with our own energy field and being able to trust that when we feel uncomfortable, or when we feel anxious, or whatever it happens to be, or angry.
Right.
That's a signal to us that we need to set a boundary.
Right.
Right. That we need to honor ourselves first.
Right.
You know? And regardless of whether somebody's pissy because, they saw you doing something else, even though you kind of skirted around it, or whatever it was, that it doesn't matter. If they're upset about it, that's their problem.
Right.
Because you're the one who has to honor your energy first. And that's going to piss some people off.
Absolutely. We know the saying that, when we have a boundary, the people that are upset because we're holding a boundary tend to be the ones that never really, respected us to begin with, right? And because it served them, us not having boundaries and not being clear about who we are. There is that dynamic of needing to know where I begin and where I end, and where the agency of another begins and ends, right? And so this is the duality, the dichotomy. That's a big word. I like to say big words. I'm a geek that way. I'll wear glasses. I actually need them. Okay, shut up. All right, so dichotomy is that line, that split, right? We have this on this side, we have this on this side, and the two are equally truthful, right? Of the nature of being interconnected at soul level. We are all one. We embody, or we hold the embodiment of source, God, universal energy, love, etc. Yet we are here having the human experience, right?
And I feel like the more that we know each other, or ourselves, as a spirit, as that soulful self,
yes,
from the energy codes.
From the energy codes, yes.
Yeah. As we're in touch with that, we are able to set the boundary. I find that my boundaries are better.
Same here.
the more spiritual I become, the closer I get to my soulful self, because it's not that I'm just like letting everyone in because of the spiritual mentality, but I have a better ability to tune in and know what my hard yes and my hard no are.
Right. Because here's where that starts to enter the picture then for us in my philosophizing, is that not every experience, not every individual is meant for us.
Yeah.
Right? So we do need to lean into this, tune into what's going on in here. There are there are universal laws at play here. We have the law of compensation, which says that when we make one decision, there are a myriad of other possibilities that are missed out on or that don't come into play by the very nature of the 3D experience of making one decision, heading towards one thing, et cetera, et cetera. For example, we watch those movies all the time, right? That show this person gets into their car at 7:55 a.m. and oh my gosh, she spilt coffee on her dress. Meanwhile, somebody's at the McDonald's rolling through the drive-through and they get pissed off at the cashier at the window and they throw their money at them and then they roll without paying for their breakfast. So then they're pissed. So then somebody else is coming through an intersection, et cetera, et cetera. And then everything collides in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But all of those independent, seemingly decisions that were made ruled out all of the other possibilities, but it crystallized into this event. And so I think that's where too we have to recognize that in our human experience, then there are going to be things that get left off the table when we make a decision in a certain direction, right? Or not.
Yeah. And I also think that the beauty of the spiritual path is that we can see people. It shifts our lens so that we're seeing people through that lens. So even if somebody is, how I would interpret, disrespecting me, right? I'm going to, I guess, appreciate it, really. And appreciate and show gratitude for it. Yeah, because it's helping me. I know that that person has been placed in my path, within my energy field, in a space of interaction with me, to help me grow.
Yes.
To help me learn. I might not be able to identify what exactly that lesson is. I don't need to know.
Right.
I really don't need to know. I just need to trust that this person's here for a reason and I honor them for that. Even if I decide after that interaction that a boundary needs to be set, because of their human presentation, it doesn't really matter because, you know, I'm still honoring them. I can honor them and set a boundary at the same time, appreciate them and set a boundary.
Because you see at the soul level who and what they represent and who and what they are at the soul level and the role that they're playing in that moment. It might not be that that individual is attuned to who and what they are at soul level yet, right?
Right.
That's where we get into the weeds sometimes because we expect, we come to believe, we formulate thoughts in our mind, right? To think and have expectations of the spiritual path then is all bliss and kumbaya, and we've got the beads flowing, the Hare Krishna, you know, head shaving and all of this kind of crap, right? And we can check out of life and life just simply flows to us. But no, we're still called in our humanity. We don't lose our human experience in that moment. We don't lose our human form. We're then at a higher level of responsibility, a higher level of energetic vibration in order to see beyond the energy, beyond what's happening in the moment and what those surface events are, right? So like you said, you can see then that level of agreement that that soul in front of you has entered into with your soul in you, with who you are, and the dance that you're doing and the symbiotic nature of that relationship. So then in that regard, the souls are coming together and interconnected, but it's the human grounded experiences that require that boundary or the separation of lived experiences, right?
Yeah. And you know, the way that you were describing that too, it makes me think that it's like my boundaries, when I set them now, are firmer,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to set less of them. So I don't know if that makes sense. I think because I'm able to,
Me. Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe set less of them in terms of how I used to set boundaries, which was to kind of protect myself emotionally.
Right.
It's no longer for that so much,
Yes.
right? It's
Yeah.
not to protect myself emotionally,
Right.
because now, you know, it's like somebody comes along and brings me whatever issue that is presenting in between
Mm-hmm.
us.
Right.
And now I have, like you just said, you're at this higher vibration.
Mm-hmm.
I have a greater, not greater, I guess, a higher perspective
Yes. Yes.
of this dance you're talking about, right? This soul dance. So I have this higher perspective. So I am going to let certain things roll off and in a way be like, it's just not important. Like the intricacies of this or the intricacies of this interaction are just not important. They're just not significant
Right.
in this realm of things.
Right. Well, not only that, you touched on an important distinction for us too, because when you live in the moment of allowing and you recognize and realize that everything is happening for our highest and best at all times, regardless of how it's presenting, right? Whatever shape or form it comes in, whether it's a coworker in front of our faces, speaking niceties with one arm behind our back, you know, shoving that shiv in, right, and digging it in deep. There is beauty in that event there for us, not to us, but for us. And so when we release from the weight of the individual and we see the event in that light, then I think we can have that deeper awareness, that higher view then of these events. And yes, the boundaries are there, but like you said, we're not attaching so much weight to them because we're self-contained. We know that whatever situation comes our way, we have our own back.
Right. And can I bring something up that's coming up right now?
Oh God, yeah.
So it's interesting because you were talking about that situation where like a coworker comes up and like kind of sticks it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So in a situation like that,
Are you
the
thinking
old,
of what I think you're thinking of?
I don't know, the old me would have not only seen this from a higher perspective, but felt a responsibility to save that person
Oh, yeah.
from their,
Mhm.
I guess you could say, like spiritual blindness or
Right.
whatever, I don't know, like their inability to see.
Right.
Right. And not that it would be my job to teach them that,
Mhm.
but that I would want to kind of take them under my wing and hold space for them, because I know that ultimately the reason that they're acting that way is because they're hurting,
Right.
is because they're suffering. And
Right.
so I have that higher perspective and I'm able to see that. And so in the past, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I need to help you. You know, I need to save you. And that's an important piece for me with boundaries is,
Right.
you know, it's interesting because I can't remember what book it is that we read
Hmm.
that was talking about, you know, saving people. It was talking about saving people, and it was
Mhm.
talking about like not, that when somebody comes into our energy field,
Mhm.
we need to understand that they're there, and because they're there,
Mhm.
we do have some level of, I guess not responsibility, but the ability to respond. I think it was radical forgiveness.
Yeah, I think you're talking about that too. Yeah.
Forgiveness with Colin Tipping,
Yes.
because he was talking about, you know, if something's happening like abuse or
Right.
war or
Yes.
something like that has not come into our, experience,
Right.
we do not have a responsibility for it.
Right.
But once it is in our experience, we do have a responsibility for it. But the way that he tells us to go about it is not by fixing the other person,
Right.
but by resolving whatever came up in that energy field between us internally on our own, and trusting that when we do that work, it changes the whole thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. 100%. Certainly, of course, and he says that in the book too. We have a level of responsibility. If it's something to be reported, we report that. We take
Yes.
the appropriate action. But yes, that piece of taking the appropriate action is not always tied to having to reveal anything to that individual, or like you said, run in, rescue, help, etc., control them, manipulate the situation, whatever, to that degree. It could
That would
very well be right, because it could very well be that that person is indeed carrying out their role,
yeah.
and their own lessons, and enacting him in that way. Yes, of course, we want to, if we have a level of ability to keep a child safe or to keep our friends safe, etc. Yes, by all means. But to try to interfere in the process, like you said, like scooping up like as though they're a wounded bird and nursing it, and so I was in an abusive relationship with a guy 3-4 years off and on. And I always felt like it was my role to, number one, prove my worthiness and my love of him to him so that he would love me back. But also, I could see the potential in him. I fell in love with his potential rather than who and what he was. Maya Angelou says, when people tell you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And absolutely believe them. But I was looking to him at his soul level. But it was not my role or my place necessarily to reveal that to him in that way.
Unless they ask, right? Unless they ask for our assistance, because otherwise it could even be interpreted as condescending.
100%.
Like if I'm being condescending to that person because you, like the way you just described it, like picking up this person as a wounded bird, they might be like, screw you, I'm not a wounded bird. Like, I don't feel that way. And how dare you disempower me to say that they're not doing it right if they're not in a space to receive that.
Right. I think of Byron Katie when she was talking about, she had met a gentleman came to her. She was walking at night. She was taking a walk, and a gentleman came to her and asked for her money. She didn't have any money on her, and he presented a weapon. He held a gun at her and threatened her life and said, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to kill you. Well, in that moment, she didn't sit there and wax eloquent to, try to talk him in or out of anything, or reveal to him, or say, oh my God, what happened to you, or whatever, or anything like that. She didn't even really beg for her life. What she did was simply allow the events to unfold, and she got curious, and she said, well, okay, so if this is the way that I'm leaving this earth, I want to leave this earth bathed in love, the love that I am within me. And so she just told him, she just said, okay, well, if you're going to take me out, we're going to go in love together. And he was like, what?
I love that story.
I do too, right?
Yeah.
That's that level of knowing. She knew where she began and ended.
See, yeah, that's the mentor that we were talking about earlier, that it's like, well, if this is supposed to unfold this way for me, then I surrender to that. I mean, that is the ultimate level of surrender. I know I'm not there yet.
No.
That takes a ridiculous level of trust in the universe and in source. And I honor that so much.
And I love that you brought trust up, because it has to be foundational here. It is foundational. So I love books. One of my favorite books, and shoot, I left it out. I didn't bring it in because it's not necessarily, it is about boundaries, really, honestly, but it's Trust by Ilanya Van Zandt. And it talks about the 4 core areas of trust: trust of self, trust of God, source energy, trust of others, and trust of life, that life is working for your highest good, for your ultimate benefit, providing these lessons that you need, et cetera, that you came here to learn. And boundaries are foundational to that, but trust is foundational to boundaries. Like you were saying, there has to be that level of trust in yourself. That's where we get that confidence of knowing that if I have somebody upset with me in front of me when I've said my no, I'm not going to fall apart, cave in, or anything. I'm just going to witness them being upset and say, okay, so you're upset that, I'm sorry that you're upset.
Yeah. And this is what I tell my clients all the time, is that, so when you're going to set a boundary, especially with someone close to you, but in any situation, if you're going to set a boundary, make sure that first you have a couple of things in place, in my opinion. One is a support person, at least, or a support system, because you can feel very exposed.
Yeah.
Because you're setting that boundary, but then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm open for attack for this person, like flipping out on me, or, and then the other piece is the resultant guilt and anxiety that can come with setting that boundary, because you've been so used to doing it for so long, and you've been in this dance with this person for so long, and there's certain expectations that exist,
right,
in the interactions between the two of you. And so the second thing is really having tools to be able to manage that anxiety and guilt when it comes up, because that's the hard work. The easier work is just flowing with it, right? Yeah. And the harder work is setting the boundary and then saying, all right, I understand that when I set this, I'm going to have more anxiety. I'm going to have more guilt in that moment, right? That I'm either going to tap through, or I'm going to journal on, or I'm going to call my support person or my support group or support person, or
in that moment. Yes.
Back you up, but that you still take the action.
Yeah.
And then understanding and trusting that the more that you do this and the more consistent you are with it, that guilt/anxiety is going to gradually fade, because you're going to gain greater confidence, because that action is a commitment to yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's appropriate for the moment, and it's appropriate for you in developing your self-concept, your self-confidence, your self-acceptance, right? And your trust in yourself. Yes. And your self-support. It's those steps that are needed to take in order for us to become self-contained, self-realized. Yeah, 100%. A great book that you and I both really enjoy is Where to Draw the Line.
Yeah.
How to Set Healthy Boundaries Every Day by Anne Catherine. And then there's some others that I will put in the comments after. One is Boundaries, When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life. And then another book by this same author called Boundaries, Where You End and I Begin, How to Recognize and Set Healthy Boundaries. So it's all needed.
What do you think out of those books? Do you know which one would be the best one to start with for people?
This one.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, Where to Draw the Line. I poured through this book like so many times and underlined, stuff, and I would read it and then I had to put it away and digest, right? And it enabled me, it held up a mirror for me, and it enabled me to see those areas where I was leaking out my own energy that is for me in support of myself, and giving that power away for other people, believing that if I did that, then they would be respectful and honorable with it and return it to me nicer and better than what I gave to them. Does that make sense? So it was more from a space when I enabled and allowed others to bleed all over me. For me, My motivation was to gain acceptance from them,
Yes. Yeah.
gain likability from them,
Mhm.
right? Be the people pleaser. Oh, if I just make them happy, they'll understand and know that I'm an agreeable, I'm a get along, I'm a lover, I'm a this, I'm a that.
Yeah, but then you're proving yourself. That's that
Yes.
dynamic, right? Is that you're in a position of proving yourself to someone else, which means you're not sitting
Right.
in, which means you're trying to prove yourself to yourself.
Yes. Yeah, and I believed that they would then take that energy that I had gifted to them in the shambles that it was, really, because that's what it is, fractured energy, that they would tuck it in nice and neatly, create this, beautiful picture, wrap it up with a pretty bow and give it back to me all nice and neat. So I was looking to them to fix me,
Mm-hmm.
what was going on inside of me,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that I couldn't say no, or believed that if I did, others wouldn't like me,
Mm-hmm.
or I would be rejected, abandoned, not found worthy.
So, right, I think that's an important piece with the boundaries because we are here on this earth to be interdependent, interconnected.
Yes.
Right? And what I always tell my clients is that the healthiest level of independence requires a healthy level of dependence
Right.
on other people. We are not here to isolate or try
Right.
to pull back. And a lot of times we do that because we're afraid to set the boundary. So we just shy away,
Right.
right? So we kind of shrink back. Go ahead.
But then when we believe ourselves to have the ability to be liked by everyone, appreciated and valued and seen by everyone, we are unworthy to no one,
Yeah.
not even ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go, oh, hold on, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So why?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like you don't want to rely on other people necessarily for your own worth and unconditional love because
Well, and in fact, we can't. Right.
we can't. Humans are unreliable creatures.
Right.
We're unreliable creatures.
Right.
Because whether we admit it or not, there's always some level of expectation there,
Yes.
right? We were just reading about this in the energy codes, the attachment versus detachment.
Right.
You're not attached to the outcome
Right.
of this interaction you're having with someone necessarily
Mhm.
but detachment is this avoidance, it's this aloofness, it's this distance, right?
100% that gets you nowhere either. Right.
Yeah, but so you want to become unattached, not detached.
Yes.
Where you say like, okay, I'm sharing energy with
Mm-hmm.
you,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not committed to the outcome. So when I was way early on as a therapist, like when I was an intern,
Mm-hmm.
and I was still learning. So I was still in like academic mode. I had to do well, I had to achieve, I had to get a certain grade, whatever.
Yeah.
So very focused on the outcome of these interactions that I would have with my clients,
Yes.
right? And if they didn't do it well, then somehow I had failed.
You sucked.
I sucked.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was never going to be good at this, right?
Yes.
So yeah, somehow I had felt because I was very connected to the outcome, which was, is very, me focused.
Right.
Because that was my role at the time. That was my agenda. I had an agenda. I was attached to the outcome.
Right.
And it's sad because at the time, you think about it, I was more attached to the outcome of how well I did in school than whether or not they were healthy. I
Right.
mean, I didn't think that way at the time consciously, of course. I wanted to help everybody and I was very helpful. But at the end of the day, I think the agenda
Right.
was more my own so that I felt good because I made these people feel better.
Right. And then it becomes, okay, so how effective is that then? If I'm just, kind of trying to shore up what it is that they already have rather than simply just holding the space for them
Mm-hmm.
and allowing whatever comes from them, because when we understand that whatever opinions, thoughts, words, actions are coming towards us are really none of our business,
Right.
in terms of hooking on to and taking personally and internalizing, that they're simply there for us to have that energetic flow and interaction with, for us to go and understand, okay, here's a leveled experience then for me to look at and to gain higher ground from and higher awareness in.
I love that. I love that holding space that you mentioned, because I think that's such a perfect way for people who are watching today to be able to say,
Yeah.
you know, in the context of boundaries, instead, I'm responsible for my own energy field, and I'm going to maintain that
Right.
and hold space for others who come into my space.
Right.
But I'm going to continue to just present myself as, this is my energy space, my energy field, and this is what I will allow in, and this is what I will not.
Right.
Because I am responsible for maintaining this.
Right.
And as long as you do that, you're trusting that they are going to benefit from being in that space with you, that you are also going to benefit because, like you said, this energy exchange is occurring regardless of any words are exchanged.
Right. Right.
Or the interaction, like actions are taken. It's just trusting that that flow is there, that ripple effect occurs when somebody enters your space, and it starts to kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even from another level of understanding then, and you and I have talked about this too, is that the understanding and knowing of, again, whatever is going on outside of us, in front of us, in our view, our witnessing, energetic, whatever, is really not a threat to us. It is what happens in here that creates the threat.
Yes.
So I have family members that are close to me that can go off like corked like that for no reason. And you're standing there going, what the hell just happened?
Right.
And it scares the crap out of everyone around.
Yeah.
She sets off a bomb, blows, it's Hiroshima, like napalm everywhere spraying. And then it's the aftermath, and we're standing in the gas masks going, why, what the hell is going on? What's happening? What just happened? Why? Well, so having gone through these things, where to draw the line, reading Trust, anything by Brené Brown.
Yep.
People. Radical Forgiveness, the energy codes, all of this stuff. And I went through therapy as well. And having my space held for me, knowing that, and having my therapist really hold that space from a standpoint of, okay, where's the threat in any of this? And knowing and understanding that she, has these moments of real big upset and huge crap. And my birthday, I turned 50 this year, and it became a big thing, a big conversation with her. And she tried to draw me into all of this upset and all of this upheaval and chaos. And I just listened to her talk, and I listened as an observer. I watched and saw and heard the energy underneath, not the words, the event, the surface stuff that was happening. So I didn't get drawn into it. And so I was up here watching. I was fully in my body, but my mind, I wasn't engaging here, creating stories around it.
That's what I was going to say. Exactly. You're creating stories based on your previous stories.
Right. And so then I had the space then to ask her questions and get curious. And then she was like, well, she was thrown off because I wasn't responding the way that I usually responded or reacted, right? Rather. And pretty soon she found herself simply having a conversation with me about what it was that she wanted to do for my birthday, and what, my mother wanted to do for my birthday, and the two of them wanted to do something for my birthday, and they were just standing there wanting to do something for my birthday. And there wasn't this big, huge thing that she had believed and tried to get me wrapped up in about the drama of all of it.
Right.
So totally just kept poking the balloon, dot by dot with that little pin.
Hmm.
And pretty soon the balloon just went deflated and there was nothing there. There wasn't a there
Hmm.
because the there that was there was all in her mind because she
Yeah.
worked herself up into a tiz. And she was throwing her stuff. She was trying to throw her bombs on the phone, let me tell you. And I just watched and I listened, and I literally could feel myself holding space for her from love,
Hmm.
like you would a toddler watching it throw a fit on the floor, making sure that there's nothing around that it's going to injure itself on. But let's just simply allow these emotions to roll because we know they're going to end.
Yes.
And then at the end, I could say, okay, so now where's the upset? Where's the upset in any of this?
See, that's such a beautiful example because it indicates your confidence, like that has grown, and your trust in that energetic exchange.
Mm-hmm. I could feel the anxiety rising.
Yes.
And so I did, the techniques that we've talked about. I breathed, I calmed myself down. I think I was even doing some tapping on my wrists, and stuff. And then pretty soon I didn't have to do that. It was just, I just reminded myself there's no threat here. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah, because what you're doing is you're kind of like parenting yourself in that moment.
Yes.
You're reparenting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're parenting yourself in that moment. And, the anxiety rising up is also an automatic learned response.
It is.
That's a story. It's an emotional story, but it's based on how you're interpreting what's going on. And so you're able to recognize that, if I'm feeling anxiety because I'm triggered by something, then I'm assessing it. I'm putting some kind of assessment on it in some way.
Yep.
That anxiety is learned.
Yep. 100%.
Which is great, because anything that we learn, we can unlearn.
Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, when we were younger, it was always my role. And then I interpreted that, oh yes, okay, I agreed to, this is my role to calm her down, keep her, so then I would find myself saying yes to things that I knew that I didn't want to be a part of, or getting caught up in drama of stuff that I wanted no part of. I didn't feel that way. I didn't see it that way, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no use in trying to explain those things to somebody when they get in that. Right. So simply just allowing them, witnessing them, watching it, asking a question, or just simply letting them rant and not absorbing it and taking the emotions of it on.
Well, that's the other piece I was going to say. Yeah. It's not just that your confidence is improved, but that your ability to really view it as their experience and not bleeding onto you, like you were talking about earlier.
Yes, it's their experience. I love that, because that then defines where they begin and where I end.
Yes. Well, you're allowing them to own it.
Yeah.
Don't take that away from them, because if you take that away from them, not only do you disempower them, but you're removing the possibility for them to take responsibility and have their own change.
100%. Yeah, my aunt, I talked with her earlier this week, or earlier last week, and she was speaking about a situation with a cousin of mine, and I kept saying to her, I said, and she understands spirituality and loves that, and she was genuinely asking to receive that, and I said, you're robbing her of the experiences she's come in this lifetime and in this form to go through and learn from. And every time you and uncle intercept that for her, it shuts it down and she's not learning what she needs to learn. And not only that, it builds resentment with the rest of your family. Quit taking her lessons and absorbing it and owning the responsibility of it and trying to, like I said, receive her lesson and make it better and then give it back to her so it's more palatable. She needs to eat that shit sandwich every time.
Yes, you are 100% right. And the reason that we have trouble with that, and I think this comes into play a lot when you're a parent, is that it's hard for us to see that discomfort.
Yeah.
Right. So it's hard for us to see them struggling.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to see somebody eat a shit sandwich because you're like, oh God, I could have saved you from that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But that's not your role.
No, it's not. And in fact, in all honesty, I would challenge that, and I think you would agree that oftentimes, if not every time, that is the loving thing to do.
Oh, it is the loving thing to do. Yeah. I mean, I see that with my kids all the time.
Yes,
And I'm just like,
yeah.
I understand, here's some tools, here's some things you can use. I'll hold space for you and all of that, but this is part of this phase of life or what have you. And honestly, I love your shit sandwich. If you eat a shit sandwich, then you actually move through it quicker.
You do.
You move through it a lot quicker.
Yeah, because you get, some of it gets stuck in your teeth.
I knew you were going to say that. Oh.
And you're having to go like this, and then it just reminds you because a little bit of it drops down in your mouth and you're like, oh.
Okay, you're going too far with this shit sandwich.
Yeah, but sometimes we got to paint that picture, right?
I think that's like exactly what it's like to set boundaries and to be on the spiritual path is that you've got to eat that, able to see the change, because we spend so much of our lives avoiding the shit sandwich.
Yes.
Avoiding the discomfort because we don't want to be uncomfortable. And I see this a lot too in, people pacifying their children or other people, just other people in general, like pacifying because we're just being like, okay, well, you're anxious. Okay, well, I don't want you to feel anxious. So let me do this for you or that for you so that you feel comfortable. But it's encouraging the cycle.
It is, and it does, and it takes ownership of things that are not yours to take. You have no business of.
Yeah.
There are so much of those things in our life that we have no business of. Last night I was at a Halloween party, and one of my friends, she's a sister of my girlfriend, and I'm friends with her too, and part of her costume, she was a gypsy. So she brought tarot cards. And she goes, I want to do these tarot cards, but I have no idea how to read them. And I said, well, I'm happy to do that for you.
Yep, I'm your girl.
Yeah. So I did. So, oh boy. So we did a 4-card spread. We flipped over the 4 of Cups, right side, in her aspect of the past. Then beneath that, in her aspect of what's going on right now, is the Chariot flipped upside down. Then she had the Empress flipped upside down in her action to take. And then in her future, she had the Fool. And so she was like, what does this mean? So we went through everything. And basically it was just a big shit sandwich of, you need to take care of yourself. Stop interfering with everybody else. Quit getting involved in other people's business. Quit trying to tell them how to live their life, how to manipulate situations involving them. Step out of it and start attending to you, your needs, who you are, what the hell's happening in here. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. How did you do that? I didn't even touch the cards. I said, it's all energy.
Yeah.
So this wasn't my energy, your intention. You said, hey, can you pull cards for me? Okay. You gave the universe permission.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I know. And I think it's funny. Sometimes they come in and they say, all right, I want to work through this and this, but I don't want to talk about my childhood.
Right.
So there are certain people that,
and your ears go.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like a glaringly, okay, you're avoiding, right?
Right.
But sometimes it's, we don't have to. If you're working through something with a boss and you're pretty much good, otherwise, like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate those people who say, I'm willing to kind of look at this and take the appropriate action to move forward. And they don't, and as long as that old stuff doesn't interfere with them moving forward, then whatever, you know? But I think when it becomes a roadblock,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes something that's an energetic block, or that shit sandwich they've been avoiding their whole lives,
Yes.
then that's the hard work. And that's what a lot of people, stay away from. They don't go to therapy, or they don't do energy work or whatever, because it sucks. And I always say in my consent forms,
Mm-hmm.
very often when people start treatment,
Yeah.
they will see an increase of symptoms before
Yes.
they get better,
Yeah.
because you're bringing this stuff to the surface that
Yes.
you've been avoiding for, however many years, usually decades,
Yes.
and now you're discussing it, and it sucks temporarily. That's the shit sandwich,
Amen.
but you're going to move through it.
Right.
That you have power and control now and perspective that you didn't then. But go ahead.
100%. 100%. I, um, I still do hair. I just don't do it behind the chair. When I would talk with clients about hair care and even skincare, and I have friends who are estheticians, and always, 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 when you start going through a skincare regimen or even hair care regimen, you're going to see stuff coming to the surface first before the body repairs itself and goes back to self-leveling and health. Because there's stuff in there, gunk, toxicity, there's, oil in the skin, whatever, irritation, inflammation, infection, all of that stuff that has to come out and be excised out and be removed in order for it to be released and done. And then you have healthy skin. It's the same reason why when people are burn victims, they do the debridements of the skin, and they literally are taking what's the equivalent of like sandpaper and rubbing the skin off, exposing the new skin under there to keep it vibrant, healthy, blood infused, cellularly repairing, and on in order for the body to heal. We talked this morning in journaling group about mercurochrome when we were kids, falling and skinning our knees and getting this crappy red stuff that's the best, amazing stuff on the planet, antibacterial and otherwise. It'll kill anything on the wounds in order to care for it and prevent infection and all of that stuff, and to clean it out and to flush out all the impurities. Well, it burns like a sauna. And if you've ever felt mercurochrome, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This takes us then to the topic of spiritual bypassing. This is where we live in this energy of spiritual awakening, where we want to live purely in the heart chakra and up. We want to deny our human existence, right, from the root chakra, the sacral and solar plexus, and we want to disconnect from all of that. And then we say that, oh no, I'm above all of this and I'm above it. And I just need to make sure that I build and gird these protections against psychic attack and negative entities and negative energy vibrations and on and on and on. You're just inviting more of the same. Because you need to understand when we're spiritually awakened, it does not mean then that we move out of the human experiencing.
No, we're supposed to be here. I mean, that's the reason that we were chosen, or that we chose to enter this human body.
Amen.
Is to experience the ups and the downs of this incarnation.
Yes.
And
full range of emotions, all of it. Right?
We're losing our spiritual experience.
Yes.
If we don't fully embody and accept the trials and tribulations that come with this life.
Yes. Because then if we can't accept that, we can't then fully accept the joy. And what book was it that we heard that from? Was that a Brene Brown book? That when we don't fully allow and experience the contrasts of life, trials and tribulations of life, the shadow of the valley of death and all of that stuff, right? Then we cannot enjoy the full weight of joy bliss, happiness, the heaven on earth.
I mean, I think that was, they did talk about that in Radical Forgiveness because, but I do remember reading about that. It might have been in actually Colette Baron Reed's book. I read about that too.
Okay. And I think that Brene Brown mentioned it in Gifts of Imperfection too. Maybe.
Yes, she did. That I'm looking at that one right now, actually, because I was just thinking that as well. Okay. Yeah. But that idea of kind of like, well, this is the way Colin Tipping talks about it, which is, really embracing our victimhood.
Yes.
Allowing ourselves to stand in that and feel it and experience it, to be able, that's the shit sandwich.
Yes, it is.
To stand in our victimhood.
Yes.
And then to be able to appreciate and integrate.
Yes.
At a spiritual level so that we can grow.
Louise Hayes, Heal Your Life, You Can Heal Your Life, talks about digesting the experiences that come to us. And digestion entails taking and breaking down the experiences, taking the nourishment, the benefit, the beauty of it, the silver lining, the lessons that are meant for us from it, and then releasing and letting go of the dross, the chaff from the wheat, which is the resentment, the bitterness, the anger, the disruption, the chaos, the unforgiveness, right? Damn, I have chills and it's like 90 degrees outside here.
I know.
This is powerful stuff. And so we cannot then bypass over things too.
No, and that's what I was just going to say. This is why it's so important, so critically important to embrace the body.
Yes.
Be very in tune with the physical body.
Amen.
And that has been a huge component of my spiritual journey. Which, it might not make sense to you. It might not seem logical, not to you, the audience. Yeah. Right. Just because it feels like, and they're not mutually exclusive. We're here together. We're here together to exist together. And because the body operates from a symbolic perspective.
Yes.
So that what our body is reflecting is communication for us. 100%. Raylan was just talking about digestion, and that, how many people on this earth have digestive issues? I mean,
yeah.
And it's a reflection of what we are not digesting emotionally or spiritually, or what we're experiencing in our environment or energetically. Right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah,
all these people that experience this anxiety, this discomfort in their solar plexus, which is like above your belly button, and in your sacral chakra, which is below your belly button.
Yes.
In either of those areas, they say butterflies in your stomach. That's right in your solar plexus, right? That's where digestion begins in your stomach.
And you are cutting off an aspect of you that is communicating to you. Anxiety is not meant to be numbed. These emotions that we have are not meant to be numbed or dulled.
Right.
Pain in the body is communication, pure and simple. If we did not have pain, if I smashed my finger with a rock and I didn't have pain, there would be a permanent injury to the body that, I would be a crash test dummy at that point. I could smash into anything. And there's people who walk around and they literally have those issues with nerve endings not firing the way that they should. And that's not okay. It's not beneficial to their body because it impacts everything else in the system. It's not normal. It's not natural. It's not our reality.
And when you have a situation like that where you bang your finger or you burn your finger or something, you feel that pain. What does that pain call you to do? It calls you to set a new boundary.
Amen.
Because what you're saying is, I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
That's an area that I don't want to enter because that created pain.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And we're informed then in our world that though we are spiritual beings, there is the reality of the human experience. And there are certain things in our human experience that we cannot do in terms of, I can't just walk in front of a car and expect it to drive right through me.
Right.
I have a human form. It will smash me, run
Right.
over me, injure me, or kill me.
Right.
There's a boundary. There's learning it real quick.
Yeah, that's exactly what our physical bodies do for us. I mean, among other
Right.
things, but it it gives us a symbolic representation of where you end and I begin.
100%. 100%. 100%.
So what I want to, before we jump off, I want to give you guys just a space that Raylyn holds and that I hold on Facebook. They're both free groups because I think that I really, one of my missions is to help people assert themselves and advocate for themselves
Yes.
through identifying and becoming clear about who is this soulful self, and feeling, gaining strength in that by asserting themselves, advocating for themselves, setting boundaries. And you need to do that, I think, while someone else is holding space for you, or while you're in a community where you can process that. So mine's called Room for Healing, and it's a free Facebook group, but it's just a space where you can take these tough steps and not feel like you're doing it alone.
Yeah.
And Raylan's is called Connected Empowerment, right? Did I say that?
You
Okay.
did. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what we both offer is, in the meantime, until you are at that place where you are fully feeling empowered, we offer the space for you to learn and grow and try these out and ask questions and interact and, become more awakened to these truths. 100%. We're not ascended masters either. None of us are.
Right.
That's why it's called a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
But it is a space and an environment in both groups. And we have members that are in both groups.
Yeah.
It's mutual spaces that are created in order to, for you to feel fully supported, heard, seen, and witnessed, and to add those layers of your healing journey, which is what we're all called to experience, really. And
Yeah,
remember,
really in a space that is, everybody's kind of on that path.
yes,
They're looking to learn, to share, to
right,
level themselves up on a spiritual level.
yeah.
So
What would be one or two things, or share your, like, some important things that really has been so meaningful and helpful to you in terms of your journey for awakening and integrating all of these things in your own practice as well.
like tools wise, or
Yeah, anything.
I mean, tapping has been integral for me.
Mhm.
EFT, emotional freedom technique. It's an energy psychology technique, and it really,
Mhm.
the reason that I like it and why some of my clients shy away from it is because um, you're doing exactly that. You're kind of like you're diving into the shit sandwich a little bit,
Yeah.
because you're bringing it to the surface,
Mhm.
all the crap that you're feeling or whatever it is. And so you're kind of facing that.
Mhm.
But then at the same time, after you go through the first couple rounds of the tapping,
Mhm.
you're peeling back. It's kind of like that burn victim
Yeah.
experience you were talking about.
Yeah.
You're peeling back a layer, and that layer that you're uncovering is a little bit more raw.
Yes.
Right. And then you continue tapping, and you have positive affirmations that go into it, and, reminders of who you truly are at your core. And so it allows you to shed and build confidence in the same technique,
Yeah.
which I like because, journaling I love, especially when it's a form of release. I like that as a form of release, and journaling is huge for me. But I like that at the end of that release part of the journaling, you use something, a tool that makes it productive.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
whether you're using Byron Katie's questions on the Word or the work.com, I think it's
Work.com.
.com.
Yep.
Whether you're using for questions to help turn it into something positive where you turn it around, or whether you're using Louise Hay's Love Yourself, Heal Your Life workbook, which we're going to be doing as a book study in Room for Healing as well.
Nice.
At least it gives you a way, you're transforming it.
Yeah.
Not just like sitting in it.
Yes.
So that's been a big one for me. And meditation has also been a really big one for me because it's been the practice of sitting still. I was always that person that said, meditation's not for me and I can't do it and I'm not good at it.
Right.
But it's because I needed it so badly, you know?
Yeah.
And until we're doing a meditation challenge in Room for Healing starting on November 4th. Where there's gonna be prizes and stuff. But where we're doing the Oprah and Deepak 21-day meditation challenge, because that's just so close to my heart. I'm doing it anyway, and that's why I was like, if you guys want to join in, I think it's such an area of growth, and they walk you through so gently and nicely, so that if you haven't done meditation before, and we're doing it together as a community. We feel supported. And if we say, oh my God, I can't focus, I can't do this, how do you guys do this? We can talk about it. And everybody can share ways that they've gone through it and worked through it. And I need a little bit of a kick in the ass right now with my meditation practice anyway. So what about you, Raylyn? What stuff have you?
Well, gosh, meditation for sure. And of course, I was the one who would always, same with you. Can't quiet my mind. What's happening? Etc. But I didn't really have anybody teaching it to me. I just was in the books that Spirit was guiding me to read. They just kept mentioning it. And finally, when I just gave myself the grace to just continue thinking thoughts, but sitting in that level of awareness, then I began to notice, oh, wait a minute, I wasn't thinking anything. And then I was like, oh, but I'm thinking. And then, so meditation has been huge for me. Journaling as well. I also work with energy, of course, with Reiki and all of that, life regression, and emotion code. Emotion code has been huge. And like you said, the work of Byron Katie, the getting curious and questioning our thoughts, really honestly looking at and analyzing, what is the thought I'm thinking right now in this moment about this individual or about the event? Is this event as daunting or overwhelming, or I can't, is that really true? And really questioning that and diving into that. The books that you mentioned too have been pivotal for me. Go ahead.
Well, and the other piece for you that I think, it exists for both of us, but I think is so characteristic of the work that you do is the interaction and the connection.
Thank you.
I really, there's so much energy exchange that exists, not only in your journaling group, but just in the work that you do, that exchange that occurs is so powerful. And I think that's been one of the really healing things for both of us on this journey, is to share in, I'll do Akashic Records readings with you, and you'll do your emotion code and your practices with me. And, just how much we expand and grow in that space. And that's how us doing shows together developed, because when you and I are together,
oh my gosh, it's on fire.
It really is. And it's being able to find those connections. And that's why it's one of the reasons why we created these groups, is because it offers you the opportunity in a smaller pool of people to find those people that you might be going through similar things, or you might be at a similar part in your journey, because that level of connection really helps us. Again, we're here for interdependence. It helps us grow.
Yes. And now that you mentioned that, in our journaling group and Journaling Junkies that I lead, in December, we're going to be talking about, right now we're talking about the energy codes. We both highly recommend that book to you. It's pretty amazing. But the next one that we're going to be discussing is Byron Katie's I Need You to Love Me. Is that true?
And then Carolyn Mays, which I'm dying for.
Carolyn Mays, Why People Don't Heal and How They Can. Yes. is the book for
So
January.
excited about this lineup. It's fabulous.
Super excited.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing Love Yourself, Heal Your Life in Room for Healing, which is really a way of creating like shifting your beliefs. It's taking your old beliefs and transforming them into ones that you choose.
Yeah.
Where you want to go.
Yeah.
And I do some demos in the Room for Healing too of certain tools that we can use. But if you really want to get in deep with them, I also have a group called Evolve. That's only twice a month. It's $30 a month. It's not a big investment. It's the cheapest way, really, for you to get these tools at an in-depth level without having to book individual sessions. Because I do EFT individual sessions, the tapping, and I do Akashic Record sessions. But we go on Akashic Records journeys. We go on we do tapping, we do meditations and sound healing and things like that. And then you can have the recording so you can do these things yourself. And that's the key. When you're setting boundaries, like we were saying earlier, that you get a nice little suitcase packed with tools for yourself.
Yes.
That you can access so that when you set these boundaries, you not only have this environment you can be in that's safe and, open, but that you know how to move through it. You have ways to move through it so that you don't shy away from setting the boundaries that take care of you.
100%. And that's the level of support that we both give, because it's not about building that dependency for dependency's sake, right? Because it's not either of us or anybody else that heals any of us.
Right.
We do that. That's the inner work, right? With our soulful self, spirit, co-creating that. But it's simply maintaining that space and giving tools of empowerment.
Yeah.
So that you guys can do that yourselves at home. Another thing I love, which you mentioned journaling. I love automatic writing, and I take people through that process all the time, and it's huge. It's transformative. You'll get messages every single time.
Every single time.
Existed. Yeah.
Every single time. Yeah. Yep.
In fact, I think we're going to be doing a challenge. Didn't we discuss that? I'm going to be doing that challenge in December.
Yeah, we talked about you doing like a writing challenge and connected empowerment. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what we're going to be doing. So we're still kind of hammering out the details. Like I said, our groups, intermingle because we intermingle, because our collective energy and all of that. So, but thank you so much, friend. This is huge. And you know what? I know this is powerful for people.
Yeah.
And we understand that for some of you, a lot of what we've shared today and talked about is new information. We also understand for some of you, it may be information that really confronts you and challenges your beliefs, challenges where you are. And we get that. And we're here to say we love you anyway, regardless.
We honor you at whatever place you are in this journey. And even if your place on this journey is, hell no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I still honor you because we've both been there.
Yeah.
So
many times.
I know.
100%. Thank you, my friend. I love you so much.
Love you too. Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us too.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.